Professor Sunny, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Please, sir. Now we can start. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to World Human Sciences and Management Conference 2021 and 22. This is Rudra Narayan Das, Executive Director, Center for ADIVASI Research and Development. We are proud to announce that this conference is conducted along with Indian Institute of Management, Sambalpur, Central University of Odisha, Koraput, and Ravenshaw University, Cuttack. I welcome our speaker for today, Professor Sunny Bose, and participants across the globe through who are watching us live in Facebook and YouTube also. And the broad theme of this conference is agnotological context, disciplinary practices of social sciences and policy frames. On behalf of Center for ADIVASI Research and Development, I extend my profound gratitude to our respected patrons, Professor Sanjay Naik, respected Vice Chancellor, Ravenshaw University, Professor Mahadev Jaiswal, Director, Indian Institute of Management, and Professor Sarath Kumar Palita, Vice Chancellor, Central University of Odisha, and the convener of this largest virtual conference, eminent Indian historian, Professor Chandi Prasad Nanda, and eminent policy activist, Mr. Chaldat Panibahiji. Dear friends, the main outcome of this conference is to come up with the national and international framework for the education system in future. The crux of this conference will be the use of digital technology such as artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality that is being increasingly adopted after the outbreak of COVID pandemic. We hope this conference will help students, faculties, researchers, and all to expand their mental horizon and listen experts from different perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, our center is a leading research-oriented institution promoting ethnographic, empirical, and evidence-based research for engaging and addressing the challenges that 21st century globe is facing today. The prime agenda of this institution is to come up with potential policy solutions for social change while believing in the idea of debate, discussion, dialogue, expertise, experiencing, and education. The institution focuses on marginalized communities and works for their livelihood and protect the nature, culture, language, and identity in particular. The age of modernity has witnessed that that change is the only constant phenomena for societal purpose to enhance knowledge. Our information work for them is methodical and avoid paradoxically framework which is neglected to so many centuries from theory to become practice. The Center for ADIVASI Research and Development sincerely believes in this concept of social marketing, which is sincerely looking for non-profit marketing and build a new social entrepreneurship for check and balance mechanism to glorify generations to come. Center for ADIVASI Research and Development come to serve with the holistic approach of critical thinking in education to fill the gaps to plan accordingly for the voiceless communities, for beneficiaries, direct and self-reflecting global South societies. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's evening, we have with us one of very mesmerizing personality and a business and management expert of India, Professor Sunny Bose. Professor Bose is an associate professor of marketing and strategy at IBS Hyderabad, a constituent of ICFAI Foundation of Higher Education, IFHE. He has a PhD in marketing from ICFAI University, Dehradun. His research interests lie in areas of place branding and consumer and customer-based place brand equity. And customer-based brand equity, country of origin effects, and nationalization strategies. He has published in Journal of Travel Research, Information Systems Frontiers, Journal of Business Research, Journal of Strategic Marketing, and Service Marketing Quarterly. He has also published in Asia Branding by Palgrave. He was the winner of AIM Seth Foundation Research Competition in 2019. His research has been awarded in international conferences. So welcome, Professor Bose, to World Human Sciences and Management Conference. Today, you will deliver your talk on trends in management research. So having you in World Human Sciences and Management Conference is definitely an achievement for us to listen your ideas. Definitely it will be a concurrence for the 21st century. Now, without taking much time, I would like to invite Professor Bose to deliver his talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rudranarayan Dash. I thank CARD, Mr. Bikram Keshari Jena, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure being here, taking this webinar on trends in management research. Now, before I begin, I believe that this talks about social sciences and all. Management and business is a discipline that encompasses or is specifically touched by each and every domain of social sciences. So my presentation on publication in modern trends in management research will primarily focus on marketing, because by academic orientation, I am a marketing scholar. However, these are generally, you can allude to other domains in management. So without further delay, I start the presentation. One thing, Mr. Dash, how much time do I have?
So you speak 1 hour, and then we'll go for question and answer for 15
All right,
minutes.
okay.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
It's visible? All right, good.
Yes.
As I said, my presentation would be on present trends in management research. As I said, I'm primarily a researcher in the domain of marketing and strategy. So the focus would be a marketing and strategy driven, but you can apply in any domain of management per se. So what is the present global trend? I will see it from two aspects. When we talk about research and publication, there are two facets to it. One is the submission part, that is basically the domain of the researchers, and then the other side, the journals, who actually publish the papers. So I would be touching upon both aspects as a researcher and as a reviewer who reviews lots and lots of research papers around in a year. So first, let's talk about submissions. So I will be focusing on geographies and economies, from where generally submissions are happening primarily across journals, across disciplines. The research focus of the kind of papers they generally do, what kind of research focus we're talking about, the orientation towards research, then the ABDC juggernaut. If some of you are in the domain of management and you want to do research, ABDC is kind of the benchmark. Though in India you have got UGCK, but global benchmark is ABDC. So the ABDC juggernaut is the primary focus is the ABDC journal, that is Australian Business and Council list of journals. Then from the journal's perspective, the focus of the journal's aims and scopes, that is what the journal basically publishes, what the journal focuses on. Then the editorial perspectives, because as the editor changes, the journal's focus also changes. So what the editorial perspective is all about, how content of the manuscript is evaluated, and the opportunities that mistrust that journals have towards specific, I won't say researchers, but specific geographies and specific kinds of researchers. So let's start. First, let's talk about geographies and economies. Geographies of economics, what we are talking about primarily the global, what I call publication, or the global ratio of submission, or how submissions are happening. Historically, the European countries, the Northern America, Australia, basically the OECD countries, these are the generally where maximum papers or maximum public submissions used to happen to a particular standard journal. Today, what is happening is a lot of growth is seen from submissions are seen in Asia and Africa, particularly led by India, China, Vietnam, Malaysia, and from Asia, and Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. A lot of times, journals that are papers that I review, invariably every 3 or 4 submissions that I review comes from either a study based in China or a study based in an African country. So that is a trend. There's a spurt in submissions spurt in the growth of submissions in from Africa and Asian countries. More and more submissions from emerging economies and transitional economies. See, what is happening is management research historically was always centered around the developed countries, particularly America and Europe. However, as markets over there saturate, what happens is the scope in the markets or the emerging countries, the markets in those emerging economies are opening up. So what is happening is not just industry, but academia has also started realizing that the focus now must be on management research in emerging economies. Are they fundamentally different from the traditional developed economies that we know of? If they're fundamentally different, then how do we make sense of those economies, or how do we do business over there? So a lot of research is actually being done in emerging economies, particularly the BRICS countries. So what is happening is locals from those countries like India, China, Brazil, a lot of publications are actually happening from researchers settled in these developed countries who want to do research in emerging economies. Particularly, a lot of research is happening from Indians located in Europe and America, Chinese located again in Europe and America. A lot of such research is also happening. Then we talk about the research focus. As I said, a critical focus that is happening is testing a phenomenon in home country context. That is, a research that is taking place in India, the focus is basically that phenomenon has already been tested in developed economies. For example, consumption behavior. So does the same consumption behavior apply in my home country, that's China or India? Countries that are fundamentally, essentially different from developed countries, both culturally, economy-wise, and psychologically. So a lot of testing of such phenomenon in home country context are actually happening. This is the trend of global submissions in management tools. Let's talk about the orientation. One of the major issues in papers, primarily that gets submitted from emerging economies like India and China, are testing and replication of theory contextually. For example, study in an emerging market context. Some of you who might be doing PhD and you want to study a phenomenon, any phenomenon, you would write that you want to test this phenomenon in Indian context. The question is, it's not really a strong justification for publication. The whole logic is, okay, you want to test it in the Indian context. If I'm an editor, I would ask, why do you think India is fundamentally so different? That it requires further probing or testing. So unless you justify that, yes, India is fundamentally different, and that justification is strong enough, your contribution that you want to study, you want to test it in an emerging market context really doesn't hold. So that's one part of one of the typical orientation that I've observed among researchers in this emerging economies, particularly in Asia and Africa. Major studies are deliberate mix and match model of cherry pick constructs. Yes. In social sciences, outright social sciences, you do a lot of exploratory study, qualitative study and all. In management, what is happening is this is becoming a real bane for editors and theorists for that matter. What is happening is you want to study, you want to get a paper published in any domain, in marketing and finance or something, and you take a specific domain of that. Now, what you do, you don't bother about studying the phenomenon, whether it's worth studying or not. What you do, you start cherry picking constructs from various literature. So what happens? Maybe you cherry pick a consumption, what do you call, loyalty from one paper, from theory, a loyalty construct. From another construct, you take what do you call, organizational stress. In sociology, you talk about the culture as such. So what you're doing, instead of going for a holistic approach of a phenomenon, just to publish a paper, you are randomly cherry picking constructs, and what you're doing, a mix and match kind of a concoction. You're making a soup out of it. So you've got ingredients. Now you put the water, sprinkle the spices, and the soup is ready. You are making an academic soup by cherry picking constructs in a mix and match this thing, which actually creates a problem. Then I come to the ABDC juggernaut. A lot of times, again, I don't know how many of you are familiar with ABDC. I hope most of you would be, particularly if you're into management research. ABDC has a huge list. ABDC is a huge list. Some of those ABDC journals themselves, you really don't know how good they actually are. Many business schools. So what is happening is many business schools are moving away from this ABDC list and creating their own lists. A lot of times ABDC, because look, ABDC is basically from Australian business deals. That's basically an Australia-centric, ideally it should be an Australia-centric list. So what happens, all the scholars who were based in Australia and New Zealand, journals that suit their kind of study would automatically rate those journals higher. So what happens is sometimes the credibility of certain journals become questioned. I won't say credibility, because if you're ABDC, your credibility is guaranteed. The standard. So a lot of institutes, what they're doing are moving away from this ABDC list and either creating their own list or going for another list. Let's say an ABS list or an FT50 list. So my point is, when you want to do a research and you want to go and publish in a journal, see what kind of quality, what kind of impact factor. There are other what do you call, metrics for quality of the journal. You have the impact factor, you have the site score, you have the SGR ratings. So focus on those as well. Now, this was, I talked about the scholars, the publication, one who's writing the paper and submitting. Now let's talk about, as I said, I actually wear two different hats, as one as a researcher, the other as a reviewer. So what I do is that I also see what the journals think, or what is the journal's side of the story, what is their take on all this publication, if I may use the term game. One part, first is the aims and the scopes. Every journal is driven by the aims of the scopes, aims and its scopes. No journal whatsoever, quality journal, I'm telling you, you take my word, is going to publish a paper that is, I won't say against, but that doesn't fit the aims or the scopes of the journal. Aims and scopes are basically the values of the journal, what the journal wants to do. So if your work doesn't fit in that journal scope, it might be a fantastic work, it might be a groundbreaking work, the journal won't accept it. The editor would write a wonderful message regretting his decision, but ultimately you will write a regret letter. I can give it to you in writing. So that is one part. So now what is happening is, last 10, 15 years, there's a growth of interdisciplinary journals. Just like in a social science domain, you have got specific subdomains. For example, in economics, you have quantitative economics, you have got rural economics, you have got development economics, you have got econometrics, you have got energy economics. So those are dedicated journals. Then there are journals that they're interdisciplinary in nature, that sees maybe financial market or financial management as an application of economics, that sees marketing from the angle of consumer economics, consumption economics, so for that matter. So there's a lot of growth of interdisciplinary journals. For example, Journal of Business Research, Journal of Travel Research in Travel and Tourism, Journal of Quantitative Economics, that deals primarily with application and mathematical, the economic science per se. So this kind of focusing on what do you call interdisciplinary journals as well. And so what is happening is journals specifically focusing on interdisciplinary context. So that I just said. So if you believe your research is such a wonderful research that it encompasses or it connects to various domains of social sciences, don't worry. You need not submit to a specialized journal. You can submit to an interdisciplinary journals, and they would love to have your paper. So you can always do that. Growth of the just opposite, there's also growth of highly specialized journals. Journals specifically focusing on particular business or market phenomenon. Example, Bottom Line. Bottom Line basically talks about your profitability and all. Then you have got journals of then you have got management science that sees everything from a scientific or what you call a quantitative approach. Then you have got Journal of Consumer Research. Be it it is not restricted to marketing per se. It can be seen as a social science, but that deals specifically with consumers, research on consumers. So these are highly specialized journals. So you might say that, okay, you believe that your work is so specific and it's so deep that it focuses on one particular domain of social science and not anything else. You ask, can I actually target a paper, a journal that deals specifically with what I'm doing? Yes, you most likely will find such a journal. So that kind of thing is also happening. So what has happened is happens in last 10-15 years is that the scope of getting your manuscript fit into a journal has actually increased many folds exponentially, because there's growth of interdisciplinary journals as well as highly specialized journals. Now I talk about the editorial perspective. First, focus towards theory and theory building. Now, if you remember a slide ago, I said that a lot of research happens by cherry picking constructs. So what is happening today? Editors are particularly across disciplines in management. They are worried that not many new theories have emerged across all business disciplines since last 3 decades. Marketing has, because as I said that I am a marketing specialist, I'm basically a domain in marketing. So marketing really hasn't found a new theory in the last 15-20 years. That goes for OB, that goes for HR and this thing. So what is happening is the critical part of it is now focuses on theory building. That you just can't simply say that this phenomena can be explained by 4 constructs and some relationships between them. No. Editors are saying now, categorically saying, what is the theoretical support? For example, this is a social science conference. So one of the most interesting domain of marketing, actually marketing borrows heavily from social sciences, particularly psychology, sociology, and anthropology. So one of the very interesting domains and heavily used theories in marketing is the consumption culture theory. That how consumers develop a consumption culture, or why consumers buy what they buy, right? So what is happening is when you're trying to understand, let's say, why consumers are buying certain things, then the editor will say that on what basis are you saying this? So at least you should have a basic knowledge saying that, okay, my theoretical premise or my fundamental argument is based on consumption culture theory. Similarly, let's say if you're talking about economics, then you might say that why should a entity or why certain entities go to a particular place to invest, or there are developed or certain zones in a country or in the world have greater development as compared to others. Then we might say that then common logic would say that They are more investment friendly. How investment friendly? Is it natural resources? Let's say Dubai doesn't have any natural resource. So what you do then, you talk about something like the transaction cost theory. The transaction cost theory says is that if my transaction cost, or basically doing business, goes up, the cost of doing business goes up, then that place won't be a very viable option. So I will always try to minimize my transaction cost. So what I'm trying to say is the focus has to be in theories for any kind of research that you are doing. Emerging markets have brought new paradigms, but not theories to explain such paradigms. Once globalization happened and markets and emerging markets suddenly became the new frontier of academic research, particularly in management discipline, what happened was people were saying that yes, emerging markets will bring new paradigms or new ways of thinking because they are fundamentally different. The tragic part of it is, yes, people have over the years, in the last 20, 25 years, people have accepted, yes, emerging markets have thrown new challenges, have shown new, new directions, but new theories have not arrived. Theories specifically coming out of emerging markets for emerging markets. So that is a real concern, that though we talk about emerging markets, that they're fundamentally different, and if you're a researcher in India, you want to test it in the Indian context, we really don't have any theory to substantiate our stand that yes, this theory is dedicated to India, Brazil, China, and other emerging economies. So that's another perspective or editorial concern. And the journals, evaluation of the content. Now let me talk about how a journal evaluates submission. Move beyond methodology. In management research, a major component of this thing is that methodology. How do you research methodology? How you want to do it? We often use this term for research. There are two aspects. There are two pillars of research. One is the relevance. The other is the rigor. Rigor primarily talks about the methodological rigor. Relevance is how relevant is my research. So at one point in time, what happened was, because as I said, in the last 20, 30 years, no new theory arrived and you had the emerging market. So what we were doing was basically, we were cherry picking constructs, putting them together, and the focus was always novel methodologies, new ways of doing research. It's like preparing the same food with different kinds of spices, with different kinds of ingredients. What happened in this case is, now editors are saying, no, enough is enough. A minimum rigor in methodology is required. However, if your focus is on methodology, then please submit to a methodology-driven journal, not to us, because we are looking more of the relevance. What idea, what new contribution you're making to the domain, to the field. Most importantly, what does your research actually help the stakeholder? What the policymaker, what the manager, what the common man can get out of your research. So that becomes very, very crucial. So does the study have originality? What is the extent of contribution to theory? Again, the same thing, because there's no theory. How are you contributing to the theory? It's like if you're just retesting the theory again and again, then what's the point? Do the arguments have robust theory backing? That is, as I've already explained this. This is very interesting, the neglected three. Often in our research, what happens is that we are so driven by our belief that we are doing a fantastic research. We focus on the model, we focus on the research objective, we focus on the methodology. What we miss out are basically what we call the neglected three. And trust me, as an editor, as a reviewer and an editor, it has always been said that most 50 to 60% of rejection happens because of these three. One, the abstract. First, the title. Second, the abstract. Third, the introduction. The first three phases, or the first three things that you come across in a research paper. If your title is very, very obscure or abstract, automatically it sends a wrong signal. Or what the hell is this all about? One, if it's too long, it becomes boring. If it's too abstract or not really clear or precise, again, the editor doesn't really know what exactly we're talking about, and the reviewer also doesn't know. Second comes abstract. See, you got to understand one thing. The reviewer will review your paper and he or she doesn't get paid for that. It is a thankless job. It is because of his passion and his commitment towards the academic community that he is doing this. So automatically, the onus is on us who are submitting the manuscript to actually make the reviewer think or find something interesting in the paper. So what is that? The first cue of what you have done is your abstract. So a very, very important thing or a very important part of your article or your manuscript is the abstract, which most of us tend to neglect. All right. So next thing is that your abstract should be very, very robust. Lastly, introduction. A mistake that we all tend to do is that it's like, oh, introduction is like, I have to write something, so I'll write something, or I bombard the introduction with all definitions and constructs or concepts. No, that comes much later on. The idea of a research is there is a phenomenon that needs to be understood. So first, you talk about that phenomenon. That becomes the what I call the bait, or that is basically the bait or the hook. That is the hook that makes the reviewer take notice of your paper or read your paper sincerely, right? So these are the three things that you have to, or what, while evaluating a manuscript as a reviewer, I have to go through and I practice. Then what become the opportunities and the mistrust. Interest on studies of emerging and transition economies. As a reviewer, as a journal editor, we have tremendous interest on studies that deal with emerging and transition economies, because as I said, they're fundamentally different. So we are eager to see, does it throw a new kind of information? Does it throw a new challenge? Can I get a new insight? So we are always interested in such studies, provided the study is not a replication one. Then again, we just simply chuck it off. Let's just another replication study, leave it. So what we do is that a critical part of it is, therefore, there's a scope of testing and retesting and developing new theories. So what happens is you can test and retest a theory, provided you say that because fundamentally those that particular emerging economy or that region is different from already tested or studied economies that requires retesting, we are happy to have a look or to accept your manuscript principally. So that is very, very crucial. But then again, you have to justify its worth replicating, its worth retesting. Mistrust towards submission from Asian and African countries. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a serious, serious concern. To be very, very honest, this is a serious, serious concern. See, what happens is, particularly in some of the papers that we deal with, particularly from China, Asia, India, Asia and all, there's a sense of mistrust in certain editors. Even 5 years ago, some of the best known journals like in tourism, like Journal of Travel Research, Journal of Tourism and all, would never ask for your data. Today, they are saying that we are encouraging you to share your data in a very simplest way, that then you better tell, or they are openly saying that if required, you have to show me your data. What is happening is there's a tremendous mistrust in those already what you call prestigious journals towards submission from Asia, China, Asia and Africa. And it's not for everybody. No, it's not. But generally, there is a sense of mistrust. Why? Research ethics issues, including data fudging and data cooking. I have known researchers who actually put outputs that, okay, this is what analysts and these are the findings, without even having a single data point. So you can pretty well understand the kind of ethical issues that we do. Then sometimes we cook data, we really don't have any data, yet we create data. Sometimes what we do is that we have got plagiarism issues and self-plagiarism issues. That is, oh, this is my own work, so I'll just change a bit here and there and publish it somewhere else because I can't sue myself, right? But then that is kind of an ethical issue that you can't plagiarize your own work, because it is your work doesn't mean that you plagiarize, you replicate, you do the same thing. So that there are serious issues over there. English language quality issues. In most of us, English is not our first language, it's not our mother tongue. So fundamentally, we face certain impediments with English. So sometimes I come across submissions which are fantastic in ideas, fantastic in methodology, but simply I have to reject the article because of the quality of language. Unbearable. Syntax all over the place. There's no uniformity of tenses. Sometimes what happens, whether it should be an or a the, that's not clear. So those kind of things we receive a lot of such manuscripts. So that becomes a real concern. And then multiple submission issues. There is a tendency with certain researchers, let me submit in 2 or more journals, because if I get a reject, then fine, it's rejected. I always have the second journal as a backup. Now, what happens in that case is, you might say, what if both accepts the paper? Then I will withdraw from one journal. Fundamentally, that is not a great thing to do, because what happens is the journal cannot take any action for that matter, but you are creating a bad name for yourself. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, the research community is very small. Every editor knows the other editor among the A-listed journals. So everyone knows the other person. So you really don't want to get into those kind of shady kind of things. So that is another issue that the journals deal with. So now what I do is that let me come to the Indian story, specifically to India. One part of it is, these are some popular trends in research in India that I have that we have witnessed. Focused on conferences. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll just ask for your feedback. I'll just take 5 minutes from you. And why do you think you should go to a conference, or why do we participate, or we send a paper in a conference? Do you have any idea? What is the purpose of a conference, or going to a conference?
I thought, sir, to go for new explorations, to new strategies of marketing policy. That means you have to explore some new ideas to the business leaders coming to the conferences, and the conversation should make a very important market strategy for businessmen and global management leaders, so far as I concerned.
Okay, no, that's a more of corporate conference. So let's talk about academic conference. Why would a researcher or a professor or faculty would be going to a conference? Because this is a conference, right? Why would you send your articles or your research to this conference? Why did you send your papers?
Sir, can I sum up with your very fantastic question? Yeah. Sir, people are only attending conference to just enhance their API scores, right? Okay. To improvise their promotions. Mm-hmm. And then if you can ask me why you should go to attend any conference, then it's really very unfortunate. I would like to say, I want to establish connectivity. Good. Because our center is always looking for very interesting relationship built up through maximum numbers of great minds of the world who are working seriously for this community or marketing or policy, whatever Professor Rudra is saying. But in my answer for you, only enhance these API scores and try to.
Good. Now let me ask. Yeah. Let me probe a bit
Dr.
further.
Jena, my question is that how this is your perspective to developing their API score and all that. So what should be the connections? बोलो क्यों जाना चाहिए और क्या सीखते?
Okay, now let me come back.
Sorry saying.
Yeah, I'll probe it further. So you said that API score, someone said networking, right? Two aspects. Fantastic. Why do you think UGC, for that matter, puts conferences or considers conferences participated for API scores? It's basically a performance indicator, right? Why do you think attending a conference should be a part of your performance indicator? To answer I take your cue. And why do you think conference is a good place to build networks? Have you ever thought about it?
Because, sir, you get lots of people in a single platform, what you call it, Mela.
Okay.
My words for Mela, academic
Fine,
Mela.
Good. See, now the whole idea of a conference is basically like-minded people, what you said, Mela, right? Now, Mela conference is technically not a Mela for everybody. It's not an open Mela. Conference is basically focused on a particular theme where experts come to discuss. So basically, the concept of putting conference in API score is basically the idea is that knowledge is getting created. Making sense? The purpose of a conference is basically discussion about knowledge, which is also about creation of knowledge, thereby new ideas. Someone said building networks. Why do you build networks? You build networks with who you believe with people who deal with your area would be coming to your conference. Who would be coming to your conference? They would be bringing knowledge, right? Which you think is important in your discipline or various areas. So the critical part of a conference is creation, exchange of knowledge. What happens is, if we consider all the manuscripts that were presented in conferences across India in last 10 years, that never got published, we could actually construct a research memorial. The focus is so much on conference is that, oh, I presented my paper in conference, my API is taken care of, forget about it. Globally, the purpose of a conference is basically, I have a working paper, I have an idea. You don't ideally discuss a full paper of research that has already been done in a conference. The idea of a conference is ideation, getting feedback, exchange of viewpoints. Look, this is what I am doing. Does it make sense? And what is happening in your context? Let's say one economist and one anthropologist are coming in discussion for their own purpose. And they interact. Look, we have a common area. Can we do something about it? Can you come down to my place to give a lecture? Can I visit your institute for resources? That is networking. But the purpose of is basically the creation and discussion of exchange of knowledge. So please, if you are going to a conference, please ensure that the outcome of it is at least a manuscript that is publishable. Don't just say, I've put that in conference, my job is done, my API score is secured. Then what you're doing is you are basically going against the fundamental principle of organizing for which the conference was organized. That's one. Next is UGC or ISN journals as ultimate goal. In India, we are basically talking about UGC journals, UGCK journals. In natural sciences, you have the, what do you call that? SSI index, in SCI index, SCI journals. In social science, you have the SSCI journals. UGC journals are good enough within India. If you want to go out, no one really cares about your UGCK journals, and that's a reality, ladies and gentlemen. I have got publications, I've got global publications, ABDC, A-Star and all. You can, I don't know how you'll take it. Most of my papers are UGCK because they're ABDC. I have never tried to publish in a typical in just a UGC journal. Maybe you can. It's up to you. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but the focus should be higher. The whole idea is that if you aim for the moon, maybe you will reach the 14th floor of or the terrace of a 14th floor building. That's the whole idea. But if you target the terrace of a 14th floor building, then you will never you will never believe that you can actually reach the moon. That's the whole idea. And people, global research community looks up to international journals and not UGC journals. So please have that in your mind, that UGC journals are not a litmus test of your research capabilities. No, it's not. Diluted area of research specialization. We have got lots of jacks of all trade. If you apply for a good B school or any good research institute, they would ask you, what is your domain of expertise? What is your domain of expertise? Yeah, you might be teaching something else, because we join an institute, the courses that we have to teach, so we teach, that's fine. But then if I ask you, what is your domain of expertise? You can't say that, okay, because I have done a little, I have published in economics and quantitative economics, I also know a bit of anthropological research. Because I'm attending this conference, so I have to do and they are basically an Adivasi institute, so I'm also doing for cultural anthropology. I have got students who are doing PhD under me in human geography. Then that fellow will go crazy. Either you are a genius or you really don't know what exactly you are. See, there's an old saying that in Rome you have to behave like a Roman. Now the issue in academic research is that, particularly if you're going for great institutes for quality and all, in Rome you become a Roman, in Greece you become a Grecan, you go to Persia you become a Persian, if you come to India you become an Indian. Ultimately, if someone asks you who exactly are you, you really don't know what to say, because by the time you have given your true identity, you have given up your true identity. So that becomes a real problem. Because if I'm looking for a specialist, I would rather find a person who's a specialist who maybe have got only 2 papers or 3 papers in that domain, rather than someone who has published 300 papers and not focused on a single domain. That means he is everywhere or she is everywhere yet nowhere. So that thing you have to take into consideration. Love for writing academic books. We Indians we have always believed in the concept of giving back. We have selflessness. That's our culture. Service before self, and we go for academic way. So what happens is, see, what is a textbook? What is an academic book? The purpose of an academic textbook or a textbook is that it is basically dissemination of knowledge. Knowledge across various domains. You are compiling them in a particular discipline, particular subject, writing it in your own way, and you are helping students get that knowledge. You are basically disseminating knowledge. Whereas a critical part, and if you see these days your UGC requirement and all the what you call NAC and all, there's heavy focus on original research papers. See, the major purpose of higher education. In Western education, you have got to see 2 things. There's a college and then there's a university. What is the purpose of a college? The purpose of a college is basically teach, dissemination of knowledge. Whereas a university, though now you have got university departments that teach, was basically seat of knowledge where knowledge used to get created, right? So academic books are basically definitely what you call the dissemination of knowledge. So you should also look into the creation of knowledge. How are you creating, or what knowledge are you contributing to your discipline? That focus ideally should be there, and not just writing books. Again, I have known individuals who have written textbooks in varied varied subjects and courses of marketing. And we were like, either this guy is genius or this guy really doesn't know what exactly he or she is doing, because how you can be an expert in every domain? Then you are not an expert. Expert is supposedly you have got in specific domains, you are the ultimate guy. How can you be knowledgeable about everything, right? So that becomes a real concern. So what are the things, what we see at present? Some things don't change. The obvious things which are kind of monolithic in nature, they become monolithic in nature. UGC ISS journals as the ultimate goals. As I said, that I have to publish in a UGC journal. If it's done, my job is done. So I'm happy. I go for the next paper, and then I'll publish 50 papers, maybe 50 papers in a year, all UGC journals, and not try higher, which actually is a test of my credibility as a researcher. Diluted areas of research, as I said, a true jack of all trade. I publish in each and every domain. I mean that's in my area in management, or for that matter in other social sciences. Does not understand the purpose of a conference. As I said, full paper does not get rewritten to accommodate suggestions or advices. See, as I said, the purpose of conference was basically discussion and exchange of ideas. So you have presented your paper in the conference and you have got certain feedbacks. You have got certain feedback. Work on that. Work on those feedbacks. Make a good manuscript out of it. Incorporate those things, the feedback that you have received. Then send it for publication. Most likely, you would not get a straight acceptance. The reviewers will say that, okay, these are the things you need to work on. You need to rework. That actually enhances the quality of paper, and trust me, that's a huge kick when a paper gets accepted in a good journal. That's a tremendous kick. These are the things that over the years I've seen not really changing in the mindset of Indian researchers. Things that are changing for better. Now, there are things that are really changing for better. A new breed of scholars and early career researchers have come who have got exposure to international research. They have access to international journals. They are going there. Particularly COVID, what COVID has done is that it has democratized conferences, because now you can sit for webinars like this one. Join e-conference. I had a presentation this afternoon in one of the international conferences. So what you're doing is that you get exposure to global research, global experts, as well as researchers and scholars from other countries, from other parts of the world, who actually enriches your own research. So that has really created a new breed of scholars with a global mindset. Evidence Scopus, ABS focused. This new breed of scholars are now not thinking about UGC or ISSN, but they are talking about global rankings, global ratings, globally accepted journals. So they are now, thankfully, I teach and I'm a product of an institute which is very, very high on international, very high on research output. In NIRF ranking, our research output actually is the biggest contributor. So we never really care much about UGC and ISSN. We are looking at international, journals, internationally accepted, databases and lists. The pressure of international accreditation. So what happens, a lot of institutes are now going for international accreditation, particularly B schools like ACSB, ICWIS and all. So they have a huge portion of those accreditation based on research. So now today you've got NIRF and NAC. NAC is the most important component of NAC today is research. So automatically what is happening is, whether you like it or not, you have to publish, and publish in a credible journal. So automatically the quality, you are in a way not just, there's a punishment and reward and punishment system. So if you're not incentivized by the reward, your fear of punishment of what's going to happen if you don't publish is now making you research and making you do at least credible research. That's a really good trend that I see presently in India, particularly with specific in certain pockets of the research community. Now there's a flip side to this, the dangerous game of publication. See, what is happening is, because we are so much running after publication and all, API component and all, what are we publishing, where are we publishing is also becoming very, very important. There are birth of predatory journals. When I take faculty recruitment interviews, I come across CVs where someone has got 30 publications. And when we check those journals, some of them are, you can make out they're very, very predatory. They were basically created so that you get published, and they will charge fees. So what happens is that a journal by the name of Journal of Technology and Innovation is publishing a paper on, let's say, on cultural anthropology. How can this happen? So those kind of things are there. Then there's, as I said, rampant self-plagiarism issues. Rampant plagiarism, self-plagiarism issues. So what I do is that if I've done a thesis, if I have my thesis ready, so that same thesis, I just change those words here and there. And from that PhD thesis of mine, I'll create 2 or 3 papers just by playing with the words and the sentences. That is a real concern, the self-plagiarism, because you want publication. What has happened in management research these days are, because now all the accreditation process is asking for research to happen in higher education. B schools particularly are incentivizing research. So you get you get paid, or you get financial reward for publication. So automatically, if you know that if you publish in a particular quality journal, you will get financial incentives. What is happening is you are desperate to publish. This has given birth to academic brokers, literally dalals. What they do, they have a connection. Some of them are very eminent scholars themselves, eminent faculties. They have connection with the journals. What they will do, they will literally do nothing with your manuscript. Everything is written by you and all. They will just put their name in as a part of that manuscript, and then they will say that I will submit this manuscript. That's that person's role. That is the role of that person. So what happens is, not only you get a publication, you get to your credit, literally just by creating that network or hitting that right person, he is literally getting a publication free without doing any kind of work, any kind of research, any kind of intellectual contribution. That is one part. The other part is even more dangerous. A few days back, in one of the communities, I saw in WhatsApp community, book chapters available, publication within 3 months. So what is that? There's an edited book. So there would be book chapters across various disciplines. I'm pretty sure you must be knowing what is an edited book. So they say that these chapter slots have already been taken. These slots are available. And if you're a first author, we are going to charge the 15,000. Second author, we will charge 10,000. Third author, third onwards, 5,000 each. This book will get published in 3 months with an ISBN. People would be doing it simply because for the API score. This is another kind of absolutely corrupt practice, which is absolutely corrupt practice. And this is actually happening because of this incentivizing research. So this is another issue. The modern ghostwriters of academia. I don't know if you're in Facebook community, you will find that we write, we'll do research for you, we'll write the thesis for you, we'll do all those, language editing is fine, I mean, they get paid, but then on your behalf, someone will write the thesis, the ghostwriters. Literally what you do, they charge you some money and a thesis is ready. That exactly what is creating a real problem in research, because what is happening is, see, this person most likely won't write the paper because this person is not an expert in every domain. This person also has got people who would write it on that institute's or that entity's behalf. So they're making a money out of it. Similarly, during the COVID time in 2020, there was a circus going on. That was not a circus. I mean, it was a suddenly online the webinars and online workshops went off the charts. I mean, the kind of online seminars and conferences were going on. What the idea is that you join my webinar. If you have an idea, you share the idea. I will work on it. We collaborate and get a paper written with both of our names, and I will charge you something because I'm showing you how to write a paper. This kind of things also has happened, which is totally against the ethical code of research. If you're doing a PhD in India, you'll find in those traditional universities, you'll find research ethics are being taught. Doesn't work. This is totally against it. Lastly, as I said, men and women who define natural law of creation. Why I say this? Natural law of creation is basically for every output you require an input. These days, without having any data, you get output. Without conducting any kind of ethnographic study, without doing any kind of interview, you get pages and pages and bytes and MBs and MBs after of transcript of video material. So that is again a real cause of concern. So what are the sunshine? More Indian researchers are getting international acceptance. That's a good thing. Scholars in Indian origins are coming back to develop research culture in India. People who did their PhDs in US and all, they're returning with their culture, and they're having that research culture, which is enhancing the quality of research in those institutes, thereby academic research as a whole. Then you have got AIE and MIB, all these chapters, institutes supporting global academic exposure. Positive, scholars in early career exposed to global standard, as I said. More such publications are coming out of India. The negatives, the divide between internationally oriented researchers and UGC oriented researchers are growing. That disparity is enhancing further and further. And the predatory journals, as I said a couple of slides back, it is turning into an epidemic. The presence of predatory journals. These are some of the research agendas. If you want to do research, again, I'm talking from management perspective because I'm management faculty. Marketing, you can have a look at all these. They will give you what they think would be the future agenda, or what do you call that? These are the domains. They will tell you these are the domains where future research needs to be done. That's about it. Thank you. Now I'm open to questions.
Thank you so much, sir. Very wonderful and insightful and very energetic deliberation you are. Now I'd like to invite Professor B.C. Das to go for a quick comment. Then I have a series of questions to interact with sir, because sir is very young and energetic, and I would love to interact with Professor Sunny Bose.
Sure.
Professor B.C. Das, please.
Now let me, do I stop sharing the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Professor Das, can you hear me? Okay, Dr. Neena Das, if you have any comment, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank
you, esteemed director, sir, and Bikram sir, and Rudra Narayan sir, and most honorable our resource person, Sunny sir. Really, it was an excellent deliberation. It was the real picture you have presented before us. In a very specific and precise way, you have presented the rosy picture of research and whatever it is going on all over India. It is true fact, and it is really heartbreaking fact that how we all will improve the quality of research, because research is not an easy task, but how the papers are published nowadays, I'm really surprised. I have seen the last 2 years, I'll not name here, one of my colleague, he has published, he's only publishing research papers. He's not teaching, he's not doing anything. Even her guidance about supervisor or guidance about MPhil PhD, that is not also up to mark, but he is publishing like more than 20 papers he has published in 2 years. How they are doing all these things, I don't understand. But after attending your deliberation, now I understood that there is a market of publishing all these things are there. And you have rightly said, sir, that ethnographic research, how could they publish ethnographic research in pandemic situation when we all are in isolated environment? They are publishing ethnographic research, cultural research, not moving anywhere, not doing data collection. So it was, your session was eye-opening for all of us, and we'll definitely try to improve research and publication by your valuable suggestions. And really it was very enthusiastic, as Vikram sir has said, very enthusiastic session, and it was very encouraging also. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And also thank you, Director sir. And myself, Dr. Hinadas from Gangadhar Mer University, from School of Education.
Okay,
Thank you, sir. Namaskar, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ninadas. With having corona positive, you are so energetic and you came to hear to some of this. Thank you, thank you.
I am
so
fighting with COVID. Still, I am interested for research.
Thank you. You are a very passionate researcher and very voracious reader. Thank you so much, madam. With this note, I would again come back to the research point of view. Sir, you don't mind, I have 11 questions for you.
Sure.
Today's night, because I know you are so energetic and you are passionate, and maximum our Odia guys in your institution, and I don't know what to them and how to them. Many people are around the country, they always fear psychosis. When they get invitation, they little bit hesitate to won't come to discuss and won't come to this kind of very most influential and world conferences. Don't know what happened with them. Sir, my first question to you for this night is, research is important or researcher is important?
Let me get, you're saying research is important or the researcher is important, right?
Yeah.
Research is the research. Look, researcher is because the research. So there's until unless there's a research, no one cares about the researcher. Period.
Okay.
A researcher becomes a researcher because of the research what he or she has done. So it's always the research that is important.
What is your ideas on multidisciplinary research or interdisciplinary research not promoting yet in India? We are always crying to our subjects. We are boundaries, we are disciplines. I am talking about, I am from history and you are from economies, and you are from political science and he is from sociology, and one body from anthropology and somebody from cultural studies, someone from chemistry and someone from geology. If you ask some question, he said, no, this is not my chapter.
Okay. See, can I answer?
Yeah.
Okay. See, what happens is, it's a mental block, and its mental block is simply because of this is not dealing with research, but it's dealing with what our education system. Our education system is such that we have always been brought into compartmentalized. We specialize in this, not in that. See, you got to understand one thing. When you do your PhD, you are PhD in the thesis or the topic of the thesis, not on one specific stream. You are not a PhD in anthropology or a PhD in the thesis that your title you have done, right? So the whole idea is your expertise lies in a particular field. Now, if that expertise requires interdisciplinary studies, then you have to do, for example, my PhD actually for my PhD, I'm basically PhD in marketing. But to do that, I had to do what they call public diplomacy, which is under the domain of international relations, political science, regional identity that deals with human geography and environmental psychology, country of origin, which is economics, and destination branding, which is tourism. So it is again the focus how you want to go about it. One thing is that, oh, I am specialized in that, so I won't get into. So there's always a fear factor. As long as you are seeing yourself as a researcher on the research agenda or the research question that you're facing, doing interdisciplinary research is not a problem. The problem, what we put a shackles on that, I am a PhD in anthropology, so I will do research that only deals with anthropology. What not? Let's say, for example, marketing requires consumer behavior. A lot of times consumers, why consumers behave in such way has anthropological roots. So an anthropologist can always venture into it. So that is the reason. So that is one part. Second part is we are yet to develop a culture in India where the departments interact. A lot of times what happens is in a university, within the humanities, anthropology will have its own conference, sociology will have its own conference, and they are like independent, mutually exclusive silos. Whereas when you see a behavior of human beings, sociology and anthropology comes together because society is built based on certain anthropological traits. So that thing, because it's not happening, we don't get much interdisciplinary research over here. I think if I have understood, if I have answered your question.
Okay, sir. Sir, then what is the actual role of varsities or institutions about research? Are you believe, do they conduct or produce knowledge or provide certificates of knowledge?
Traditional universities, the focus is we're getting PhDs, not creating knowledge. Because see, the whole idea is again, it's like a loop. Because if your focus is API, you know the number of students you have guided will add on to your API. Your focus will be on number of students I have guided and not what that research is coming out of it. So the focus is always, and then there's another thing that is said that PhD जैसे तैसे कर ले उसके बाद research करेंगे. PhD is your PhD. You have the greatest chance of getting publication through your PhD because that's a huge, that's a very in-depth study. But what happens? However, what happens is I have to get scholars. I have to show that I have guided so many scholars, and from the scholars end, I have to get the PhD so that I can give college services commission exam and I become a lecturer. So that's the problem. That's the loop that we have got ourselves into or got caught in.
Sir, if according to
again, these are my personal opinion. I mean,
okay. Don't worry, sir, and don't put your opinions into generalized, right, sir?
No.
Then, sir, if suddenly the PhDs are very vibrant in these days in India, near about 7.5 decades, then why not a single PhD discussed in assemblies or parliaments in India yet? The research outputs.
Okay.
And sir, another just few words left from this question. And the BA Pass IS officers, they cannot give you damp, right? They cannot give you damp to
I didn't get what you just said. I didn't get
okay, the BA Pass IS officer, the BA quote unquote, the BA Pass IS officer, they cannot damn to the researchers, even professors also.
Okay. See, what happens is why we don't talk about research in Parliament. Research actually, the purpose of a research are basically what we call think tanks. All right. The purpose of research is think tank who would interact with the Parliament. Parliament is basically the executive body. So research doesn't directly get into Parliament because what research does is the think tank, the parliaments get the report on which they have an idea that okay, this is what we need to do. Our job, look, we have to understand one thing. Our job as a researcher is not directly get executive what you call writs and all. We are there to show what we can do, what the society needs and what has to be done. That gets applied in Parliament. That is one. And now what you said that why those BA Pass don't bother about research. And this is not just about BA Pass, it's also about industry. I work in management. So one of the common things that industry tells us that what you all do are basically doesn't apply to my company, is not good for my company. And I just give a very simple answer to them. I'll come to your BA pass this thing because I can tell you my story. I said, look, you're making a mistake. My job is to understand what is going on in market as a whole, how market is doing and making sense of it. My job is not to give free consultancy to solve your business problem. You pay me consultancy fee and I'll do that for you. Don't expect me to give you free services. The period I'm not doing it. That's not my job. Regarding BA pass, again, they care a damn because one thing is that their orientation is something else. However, hello, yeah. However, the other part is the bureaucrats and who actually are the think tanks. They pass on that this needs to be done, and so what you call the BA pass actually then because once you go to understand, sir, that the BA pass won't make sense of what we are going to say, because let's face it, they don't have that academic level to make sense of what we are doing. Let's be very honest about it. They're limited to what they're right. So our job is to help the think tanks make sense of what the BA pass needs to do. That is the purpose. So automatically don't expect a BA pass to he or she might appreciate what great work we are doing because we are a professor. But it would be unfair towards them to say that why you're not making sense of what we are doing.
Sir, in many states, I have seen last couple of particular years, the education secretary is a BA pass guy in many states.
Yeah, he or she would be an IAS most likely.
Exactly, the BA pass IAS officers. That's why I quote unquote BA pass IAS officers.
That's what I said.
When somebody, the vice chancellor is the most academic post, the highest academic post of any university, go to him and meet personally some queries. And he said, why you should come to me? You can call me. Why you should come to me and just please go away? I have a lot of works because I am the secretary of the state.
See, the bureaucrat or the IA or the officer, what do you call the BA pass, the officer? His job is basically administration. All right. Simply put, a bureaucrat is nothing but an executive or a manager of a state or a country. In that department, he's basically the department head, right? So his job is basically administration and making sense, or running the business, running the department. So when a chancellor goes to him, right? This fellow says that what you're saying is too esoteric because this fellow will talk in another plane. Because that's his domain. So that's where this what do you call the disparity comes in. The issue is in India, there's in developed countries like in US, most of the policies are actually made by professors and all because they are the think tanks. In India, the role that the think tank supposedly who's supposedly going to work between the chancellor or the university and the bureaucracy or what do you call the state, that role is missing, or it's not. I mean, it happens a lot in what you call in defense studies and in foreign affairs. A lot of think tanks are there, but at the state level, that is not present. I think that's the part. That's my take on that.
Thank you. And sir, you are from marketing, right, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then tell me, sir, what kind of research is important? The marketing research is important, or the social or political research is important? In terms of what I observe, I am from also management side. When the marketing research guys are research, they always put together the how to bring ideas into sell it out their product or purchase it and how to confuse the consumer or citizens of the country. But at the same time, when you're going to deal with the research, the puzzle kind of thing to social science research and addressing the issue first and go to how to solve the problem. What is the difference between marketing research and particular social science research?
Okay. You got to understand what exactly marketing is to understand this. All right. The very fundamental thing of marketing is marketing is based on the concept of exchange. Right. you have something, the customer has something, the seller or the marketer has something. So why would they exchange? Because the customer would get some value out of it. Mutually, I would get money and you would get whatever you buy from me. All right. And fundamentally, that is marketing. So any research that deals with this on this basic principle of understanding the customer, how could I create value for the customer, and how do I get out of it, is domain of marketing research. What is social research? This is interesting. As I said, marketing is about sales and all. So in itself, marketing is a look down upon word, and then you add politics from another side. Then it's going to be an absolute, what you call, it's going to be perhaps the most hated concept of all this, right? As if marketing wasn't bad enough, then you have got politics. There's a huge volume of research on political marketing.
Right,
how politics get marketed.
Right.
So the whole idea of it is, marketing is a part of social science research. We often say, and this is, and the word, and the interesting analogy would be, management is kind of an illicit child. Why I say illicit child? It's an illicit child because it has a single mother, economics, and it has multiple fathers, the social sciences. Right? So at one hand, you have the social sciences that deals with behavioral theories. Social sciences are basically behavioral in nature. And you have got the economic theories, which are absolutely profit money driven. So when you see marketing research or a social science research, marketing research is a part of social science research. The why you say that, why it's not sociology is not marketing, simply because sociology deals with society. Marketing deals with a very specific domain, that is what business or entities, research that deals with business or entities or any, not just business, any entities that deals with markets. How to, the concept of marketing is marketing, an activity relating to market, is a doing word relating to market. So that is the domain of marketing research. So it's a part of social research only.
Okay. Then, sir, what is your ideas on Western ideas, particularly the decolonizing method? Western ideas.
Western ideas, okay.
The decolonizing methodology per se, in terms of Indian methodological aspect. When you are conducting some research, particular, you rightly mentioned about anthropology or cultural studies or any bias, maximum numbers of professors are wearing blazers in AC rooms. They want to go to the fields, never visited any field or met any kind of victims, but they wrote very fantastic piece of article and published somewhere else, those international journals, not knowing by anybody, and they are put their CV. They are doing very good research.
See,
and very
I'll tell you something. This is one side. There's other side of it as well. I can name one gentleman by the name of Professor Russell Belk. He's supposed to be, he's considered to be the last word when it comes to consumer research. Right, Russ Belk. He's a Canadian, absolutely westernized. However, some of his research actually deals with, you won't believe it, Calcutta's, there's a place called Calcutta, Bijaygarh, which is kind of a lower middle income area. His study was basically how shopkeepers actually behave. The close-knitness of shopkeepers, because they believe that we call it embeddedness, social embeddedness, which actually again deals with sociology. All right, that I cannot go against the entire community, because if I am something, because I'm a part of that, I'm embedded, integrated with the community. So what this person does is 9 months he's in the fields, talking to tribals, having a cup of coffee with a cup of coffee in Mexico with locals. I mean, walking with the local Indian scholar in the fields, in what do you call, in the paddy fields of Bihar and West Bengal. So those kind of research is also there. So it's a misnomer that most of them write papers simply sitting in their AC room and all. If you are people who have that credibility, they are good because of what they have done. They're really good at their job.
Okay, sir, I can counting so many names like Professor Mohan Datta. He was sitting in New Zealand and working on these Maori communities, right, sir? And some Samarendra Das, he is sitting in Westminster and Sussex. He is working on Niyamgiri, particular Vedant Kalahandi. And somebody, Mark Hall, he is sitting in USA and working on this Keonjhar mining. Maximum people are working, sir. Maximum people are working.
See, there are two things. There are two things. You got to understand that they in this they have got a this is another form which we got to accept. That's another reality. As compared to developed countries, India spends a fraction of its budget on education and research. That's a reality. We have to live with that. These people have got huge endowments from their departments to do research. So it's not that they're sitting and writing a paper just like that from Kalahandi, sitting somewhere in the US university. What they more generally do is they actually build a network. Maybe some scholar who's actually an Indian scholar who's doing his PhD under him, they are working on it. That scholar comes back as a part of field study, as a part of, again, funded project, collects the data, makes all those ethnographic studies. And while that person is doing the research, he is in touch with him, right? That also happens in marketing. We often do that. So that is one part. So it would be wrong, or it would be unjust to say that they just publish sitting in their AC rooms without knowing the reality. Maybe they don't visit physically, but they have got access to what they're basically doing.
Sir, how could it possible when science domain research people are writing 198 papers in just 10 years? How could it possible? You rightly mentioned about research paper for whom and who write, who is reading it in reference to politics of publication. Numbers of research articles are publishing, sir. Actually, who is the reader, sir? And what is the benefit of the society?
Okay. That's a very complicated question, actually. The idea of science, see, what you're going to understand what exactly is science. Science is basically, the purpose of science is to make sense of a phenomenon. All right. It explains something is happening, why it is happening, and how it is happening. So that is the primary thing, that I see something happening and I make sense of it. I'm basically not only keeping a record, I'm giving an explanation for that. Now, whom it is benefiting? In social science research, the most important part of it is that I'm not getting into natural science because they have a different take on it, right? They have a different, sometimes, for example, I mean, how do I get benefited if someone in Department of Astrophysics in New York University discovers a new comet? How do I get benefited? I don't. Even the university director doesn't get benefited. That's something else. Let's talk about social science. The purpose of actually doing a research is giving back to the stakeholder. All right. For example, in tourism and all. If you're doing research in tourism, for example, let's say a touristic place. When you talk about, let's say, you want to develop what I call an ecotourism somewhere like Dhenkanal and all, right? Dhenkanal is basically kind of an arid area of Odisha, right? Kalahandi, right, Dhenkanal, right, and all. So what happens in that case is, the purpose of this research is, let's say I develop this tourism model of how Dhenkanal can be brought into the tourism map. What is the cost for the locals? How the locals get benefited? I have to show that as well, right? So that enables policymakers, again, not directly the babus, but through the think tanks. Making sense? That is supposed, ideally, the contribution of research. What has happened because of this API and incentives? We do research because a lot of times we do research, but the purpose of research was actually very honorable, because you do research because you believe this something there that needs to be understood, and someone would get benefited out of it. That is why every research paper, the last part is actually contributions. How are you going to, what contributions are you making with this research? That was basically the purpose.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. But sir, my idea is slightly bit different. I don't put further any kind of research paper. I don't take them all seriously, because they don't want to. they don't want to put any kind of information, rather copy paste methodology. And I really very sorry, if you look EPW articles, you can find some suggestions or Sage or Oxford, but many blah 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 the research.
I'll tell you something. So see, as I said, sometimes if I said that the issue was you literally cherry pick construct, I've already said, right? You pick 7 constructs and then zor zabardast you make a sense out of it.
Okay.
Those research is only for publications. Even the person who's writing it knows, the editor knows, the reviewer knows.
Seriously,
but that's another game. There's also a business game to it. There's also business game to it. So let's not get into it.
And sir, now the question come to the end part, and 2 questions for you this night. I know, sir, a little bit boring you and little bit.
It's okay, absolutely fine. I mean, I always get fascinated dealing with scholars and all this rather than
fantastic, sir. Because sir, I know you are so young and energetic, so perhaps make an entire globe watching you. So that's why I will put another questions for the youngsters. Sir, the methodology kind of part. There is in India, one methodology is very popular, that is called copy and paste.
It's not only in India, across the world. Particularly in Asia and emerging economies, Asia and Africa.
And this is the entire global south as whole, sir. That is very popular. Sir, when you are going to deal research, in particular the empirical analysis or cultural studies or even the ethnographical research, what our center is establishing a new kind of tools of research that is called tour and travel. Tour and travel, nothing considered in as far now in Indian research. This is very new, and something very, very new and achievable in 1 to 3 years. Second, long-term interaction. Long-term interaction is one of the major part. The focus group discussions. It's not about the political science of research that people are bring together and ask some questions or put down some notes. Oral narratives, memory mapping, and then perhaps one of the greatest ever we conquer the methodology that is called oral narratives and long-term interviews. Long-term interviews means more than 2 hours.
Long interviews,
And these interviews always put in research that is so important. And intrapersonal communications is a very important part of research.
Yes, see, there's something called phenomenology. What you're talking about is long interviews, or maybe in technology, I mean, in technical terms, it somehow relates to phenomenology. Where the phenomenology principle is based on that. You gather data from someone who has lived that experience. Let's say you are studying a phenomenon, someone who has lived that phenomenon, who was a part of that phenomenon. You gather data from that person because he or that person is would be the best person to explain what the experience would be like, what the phenomenon was first time the phenomenon was. So in that case, yes, long interviews are very well practiced. Even in ethnography, long interviews are well practiced.
And sir, why the particular PhD thesis always bank upon these primary data and secondary data? The dull and dormant procedures, what happened? Traditional approach always going on.
See, look, fundamentally, there are only 2 kinds of data, either primary or secondary. So even if you're doing exploratory study, what you're talking about qualitative research, that's primary data. If you're collecting data from, let's say, financial statements or a lot of times, memoirs. There's a huge research is done on memoirs, right? Or let's say you're going through personal diaries of people. Then that becomes secondary data. So you really, that's the whole idea. There are only 2 kinds of data, primary, secondary. Either if you're doing primary research or secondary research, period.
Sir, when the day will come and we just pull it out, all these things, and we have a concrete policy solutions for doing research and critical analysis research? You
can't simply because it's so dynamic, and particularly what has happened is because of technology and all the way research is also happening is it's changing. For example, who would have thought 5 years ago that without actually visiting someone, what you call having long interviews, I can actually tell you, I can actually have an insight of what kind of stuff you buy, what kind of things you require. What are your interests? Who are your most important people in your life? Simply by getting onto your Facebook or your social media platforms, right? I will collect social media data and I'll make sense out of it with AI and all those stuff. So you can pretty well understand that the idea of uniformity of research can never happen, because the moment you bring in, this is the concrete body of knowledge and everything is same, then what happens is it doesn't become any dynamic, because with technology, everything is changing, it's evolving. The way research is being conducted is also evolving.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And last question for you today's night, sir, without wasting much of your time.
Yeah.
Sir, we are working for knowledge industry or knowledge society to address the issue and solve their problem or put them in problem?
Knowledge society. See, industry is not beyond the society. You've got to understand one thing. Industry is a part of society, because two things. Industry and now I won't talk about what you call marketing. I'll talk about something called organizational theory and strategy. An industry, or what we call a firm, an enterprise, gets resources from the society, resources of every kind, manpower, capital, whatever. Most importantly, it gets affiliation from the society to do business. It is there because the society is allowing you to do business. Now, why the society is allowing you to do business? Because the society knows that it would be better off if the business is there, because that firm was going to give me something in return that I don't have automatically, which I won't have if it's not existing. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship of give and take. So the industry is naturally embedded within the society. So we talk about knowledge society these days. We talk about knowledge industry is an industry that deals with knowledge. That's it. That's knowledge industry. That's IT and all those are knowledge in where the main denomination or the main resource of doing business is knowledge. That is knowledge industry. But we are basically talking about knowledge society.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Very passionately you given all the answers. Before I conclude the session, I must thank you from core of my heart and bottom of my heart.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure interacting with you all.
Accepting our invitation and joining World Human Science and Management Conference, and you give not less than 47 minutes of yours. With this note, I will stop here. And thank you so much, sir.
It was a pleasure.
And looking forward for future engagements. Before the formal vote of thanks, I would like to call Rudran and Das to give formal vote of thanks as well. And he has some queries also. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Zena, for inviting me for the vote of thanks. Before going this vote of thanks, I have a question to Professor Bose. So my question is, as a student of history, firstly, we know about market and market policy in our history book in the middle Indian century when Alauddin Khilji's rule was happening in India. So what do you think that the entire market policy will be changed in this 21st century? We are also talking about the 1929 global economic crisis and the 1996 Indian economic crisis, when the Indian market is completely collapsed and share marketing and all that. I don't have much knowledge about that. So my question is, how do we create a market policy to stop the economic crisis in the present scenario?
You can't. That is the irony of open market economy. See, the whole idea of it is it's what I call. I mean, I'm not. Though I believe a specialist, an economist would have been able to give you a better response to this. I'll give you a mota idea, right? I mean, from my perspective. Today we are into a market economy where we talk about open trade, globalization, right? Free market. We are basically talking about free markets. Why you chose free markets post 1990? Why did you go for an LPG? Because the closed economy was not working, right? Because simply you didn't have I mean, whatever you required, it was not good enough. So you required other funds as well, other players coming in and all. You needed funds in the economy. So if you're going for a free market where the growth level is higher, you also there's a fundamental principle of economics is higher the risk, higher the return. Risk and return are directly related. So if you're going for a free market, then you are always willing to take that risk of economic cycles, of recessions of happening, because you believe the economy will grow far further, right? Because of investments and all those things. Or what you can do is that you become a closed economy like the Russians and all those things, right? So China technically was an authoritarian state, it's no more a communist state. The fact is, in that case, when you've got a closed economy, but technically when you have got what we call the three-factor economy, that is firm, household, and government, then external shocks won't affect you, but your economy won't grow, and so you're always stagnating. So that is the choice every country makes, and most of the countries, democracies worldwide, has said that okay, we are willing to take that risk, given that the return is higher. Live with that.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful remarks on my question. And now I would like to thank everyone to help me putting this conference together. First of all, I would like to thank my big thank for our honorable speaker for today, Professor Sunny Bose. Thank you very much for your contributions and time that you are rightly mentioned in your presentation, that the information age is currently characterized by an acceleration in the production and consumption of information, which has a massive impact on social life. Thus, even in the social sciences, conventional approaches must be abandoned and new ones developed. From the economic perspective, from the and the contributors to this anthology deals with new trends in various areas of management philosophy, particularly the articles focus on human resources, marketing, finance, and economics. So especially your writing focus on journal and marketing. In my point of view, we were also mentioning that marketing in the 21st century combines both traditional and digital channels to promote products and services. Before the 21st century, organizations had no advertising options other than conventional channels such as newspapers, televisions, flyers, and radio to reach their targets, customers, etc. So they focused on mass marketing campaigner to create awareness in the target market and influence potential customers to make purchasing decisions. So market policy is a very important aspect of our economy, as you rightly mentioned in your presentation. So we need social marketing, personalized email marketing, content marketing strategy. Traditional marketing is also quite adopted in the 21st century. So marketing in 21st century is a mix of both traditional and digital marketing, depending on the type of products, marketing budget, size of target market, and spending habits of potential customers. Organizations alter their marketing strategy accordingly. And definitely, thank you so much for your presentation, that you also analyze the importance of marketing functions from the standpoint of top and medium level managers of companies, evaluation of themselves to functions importance as a whole, as well as separately by its more narrowly activities seems to be a very relevant methodology for understanding the most typical managerial stereotypes and relating them with general results and outputs that 21st century is using today. Thank you so much, sir, for having with us. And I would like to thank and I have to acknowledge the institutes who have contributed so much. The Central University of Odisha, Indian Institute of Management, and Ravenshaw University for their support and guidance. My special thanks to our patrons, Professor Sanjay Naik, Professor S.K. Pallita, Professor Mahadev Joyswal, and our convener, Professor Chandi Prasad Nanda and Charudat Panigrahiji for their motivations to conducting such kind of intellectual gatherings and listen the ideas of 21st century to different experts of the society who are working and research in different societies. My special mention to the director, Dr. Vikram Keshari Jena, for their immense contributions towards the social arena of 21st century, which is definitely helped the entire research faculties and researchers, faculties, and particularly the students and young achievers like us to learn many more things to our speakers. Thank you so much, sir. And I would like to thank our entire team for their cooperation. Professor Shubham Das, Professor Nena Das, Professor BC Das, Professor Srinivasulu NS, Professor Misra, and Kamal Prasad Mohanty, Professor Chinmay Sahu, Priti Sriranjan, and Professor Loknath Misra for their huge contributions and support to organizing such kind of intellectual gathering. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for joining us.